Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trending. Today is Thursday, April 10th, about 9:40 as we're recording. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're rocking your Ohio State jacket.
That's right. Natties. When they win it, you got to buy all the swag.
I like it. I like it. Well, there's a lot going on around here, Joe,
Yes.
and a lot to tackle here today. So if you attend Ridgepoint, if you were with us this past Sunday, you heard there's a big announcement about our friend Joe.
Oh.
For our trending friends, if maybe people weren't here, would you like to share a little bit about what's going on?
Yes. So recently I was asked to consider a job back at a church I work for in Atlanta, Georgia, Peachtree Presbyterian Church. Mm-hmm. And great job. And we've been there before. We still got people there. Obviously tough to leave a good job here. And we have a family in the Kansas area. And so we had a lot to sort through and to pray about. Yeah. And pray we did, and talk about we did. And we concluded that we're willing to take the leap. Yeah. And we will set our sails to the east side of the United States, go to Atlanta, Georgia. And I'll join staff there in June. So I'll be on staff here at Ridgepoint through May. We got plenty of work to do still.
Yes.
A lot going on to prepare for the summer. Hopefully to help prepare for the fall as well, from the adult discipleship part of the ministry. And got a wedding at the end of May for some Kansas friends. So once all that is completed, then we'll make the pivot to Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, we are excited for you, excited for your family, but we are all heartbroken. And that seems to be the consensus as I talk to people around here, is they're excited for you and a great opportunity, but man, what a hole for us at Ridgepoint. So you'll be dearly missed, my friend.
Yeah, and we'll miss this place too. It's been good to us. I shared a bit on Sunday morning, but my kids had formative years here. Mm-hmm. They're learning about the faith because of Ridgepoint. Yeah. Great friends on staff. It's been like a lighthearted, fun group. Mm-hmm. Who wouldn't want to work here, man? I mean, such a great team. And then with Ginger continuing to have her ailment and continue to recover from COVID, this church has been so kind to us. Folks have gone to our house, dropped off meals. They've cleaned bathrooms and scrubbed our floors and hauled Ginger a place or two from time to time, and just given her companionship in this season that she's in. And so I'm grateful for all those things. Yeah. And I have a lot of fond memories and cherish Ridgepoint, my time here. For the years to come. So.
Yes. Well, that's good. Well, it kind of leads into today's topic. Okay. Because obviously I feel like we needed to let our training friends know what you're doing. Before we move on, I guess we should say we've got probably, 5, 6, 7 more weeks, depending on travel schedule and stuff. We'll keep doing this as long as you're around. So we'll do at least a few more episodes. And people have asked us, what are we going to do now? Are we going to keep trying? And last night, my friend Ernie Sweat was like, hey, I'm ready to put me in, coach. I'm ready. Ernie wants to take your spot.
They have a little tryouts?
Yeah.
American Idol style?
Yes. I don't know what we're going to do. We've kind of talked a little bit. We're not sure if we're going to be able to keep this up, just with obviously 2 different jobs, 2 different states, families and stuff. We'd love to keep it up, but it might just be harder for us to keep it up. So anyway, as we work out the future for trending, we'll try to keep it posted. But.
Yeah, it may not be trending. I do want to continue to create with you. I feel like we got a good thing going here. Yeah. And it'd be a cool way for your dad to make some new 3D printing thing if we come up with something new. And so, I think there's opportunity there. We might just need to dig in a little into a new reality. Yeah. And then we'll start creating stuff. I think we should create stuff in the background and just launch it without any notice.
Oh, wow.
It's a splash.
And one day you'll just find it.
That's right. It'd be like the great Hambino's cannonball on Sandlot.
Sandlot, yes. Nice. Yes, I love it. Okay, where I was going before was, so I was looking last night trying to figure out what we talked about today. Right. And the number one topic on Twitter and Google, all the places I look, was Luka Doncic.
Luka Doncic. Yes. Luka Doncic. Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say. I like him. He's a great player. He's fun to watch. So anyway, I'm a fan of his. But last night was a big day for him, where he went back to Dallas. He's on the Lakers now. He was in Dallas for 6.5 years. People are saying he's one of the most iconic Dallas athletes. Wow. Maybe Troy Aikman, some of the Cowboys probably, but who else from the Mavericks? I mean, Jason Kidd. They've got a few pretty big, high-profile people.
Yeah, Dirk was big back in his day. But you're right.
He's he's kind of one of the Texas athletes. And so he was traded kind of suddenly to L.A. It sounds like he didn't really have much say in the matter. He was kind of surprised by it. A lot of the fans were obviously surprised by it. I think he's the kind of player. A lot of people thought he'd retire. He'd be a one-team guy. He just kind of had that vibe about him. At least I thought so. Yeah. So he was traded kind of suddenly. Last night, he was playing for LA back in Dallas, and they play a little tribute to him as they introduce the starting five, and there's a kind of a special moment where they honor Luka, and he's just crying. Like, he's having a hard time keeping it together, and you can tell it's a big emotional moment for him, and he's having trouble kind of composing himself. And they asked him after the game, like, what were you feeling? What was that moment like? And he's like, honestly, I didn't think I could play. Like, he was just a wreck. Like, just because he just loved this place and they loved him, and an emotional time. Yeah. So I thought we could talk about, we've talked about this a little bit before, but change, and how do you know when it's time to leave? How do you handle big transitions? Yeah. Obviously very timely for you. So a lot of this you're probably thinking about already, but our friends watching are probably, some people are probably in similar spots where maybe they're kind of sensing it's time for some kind of transition or change. That's hard to know, especially if it's your decision. Like, Luka didn't really have a whole lot of say in the matter, right? But if you're the one who's like, man, I think it's time for me to make a big change, for you to move your family across the country, right? How do you know what's God's will and all of that? And how do you wrestle with all that? So I think I'd like to hear from you just from your own experience, but then I think we can all learn from this kind of conversation as well. So where do we start, Joe?
Man, I don't know where to begin. So we'll just jump in. And what's cool is that, so we're in the middle of the Mark series right now here at Ridgepoint. And after Easter, we're going to transition to a sermon series on this topic. So people hear about multiple choice, how to sift through all the choices that we have, how to make ones that are faithful. Yeah. And so this is maybe a little preview for that. So I think when it comes to one's personal journey, I like something that Richard Rohr had said in some of his teachings, where he's like, the first half of your life, you are building a container. You're figuring out who you are, and what you're not. So you can name things and dename things at the same time. So I was even thinking today, I was listening to some good tunes on the way to work, and it was like Piano Man, and it's like really? Kind of piano ballads.
Not country, huh?
Not country this time.
Not today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought, I would love to like be able to sit down and like play some of these songs, but like I have not taken piano lessons in like 30 some odd years. Yeah. And I maybe only took like a dozen, when I was younger. So like to like even begin that would be such a great effort, right? So obviously, like by the time you get to midlife, or maybe even before midlife, there are some things that you know that are just out of reach. But then there are things that are constant. There are things that keep on showing up. History doesn't repeat, Twain says, but it rhymes. And you see this rhythm in your life. And I think Rohr in his schema would say like this is a container being built. Okay, so like I could say like, just kind of watching you, like it's not just ministry that is your container, but like being a creator and being a creative is a container. So I think that helps you with choices that you now make down the road. You could say, okay, there's certain things that belong in this container, and there's certain things that do not, and I just need to not even entertain those things. Yeah. But he says the second half of your life, you fill that container then. You know what you're going to do. Therefore, try to pick those things that belong in there. Yeah. And so when you get to the end, you could look back and reflect over your steps. You could say, I think I lived as consistent of a life that I could. I think it was faithful to the things that I was good at. I think I was good to the people that were around me, because you're able to kind of eliminate a lot and focus on a few things. Yeah. I think the Proverbs, he said this, like, where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. Okay. There's something actually helpful about fences and about lanes. And so I think that what we should be eager in our first half of life to discover is, what is the lane that I'm running in? What's the water slide that I'm on? And I think we get that through like inner reflection. I think we get that from affirmation from peers, from parents, from teachers, those faithful voices in our life that really steered us, put a hand on our shoulder, looked us in the eye and said, you're really good at this. Yeah. And it's not luck. You really have something here. Yeah. We got to pay attention to those things. So I think once you kind of get that general direction, then you can start saying, okay, then what belongs there? And I think that we might actually have moments in life where there are 3 good options in front of us, and they all belong in there. Yeah. And so that becomes the next interesting set of questions, which is to say, would it be faithful in my faith to do any of these things? If one or two doesn't apply, then you can push those to the side, then you know the one that you're supposed to go to. But if all 3 fit, this is who I am, and this is faithfulness to Jesus, looks like all 3 of these things. Yeah. Kevin DeYoung says this in his book, Just Do Something. He's like, God sometimes gives us the gift of choosing. Yeah. And I think that is probably the best case scenario. Am I in the lane that I'm supposed to be in? Yep. Am I pursuing the things that really matter and make sense? And are there more than one option? Then you might be able to say, okay, I can pray about this. There may not be a crystal clear answer one way or the other. And what the answer might be is you get the gift to choose.
Yeah.
Because God trusts us to be faithful in the thing that we're choosing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's maybe the best case scenario when you think about the general trajectory of life.
Yeah. That's great. It leads me right to the next question. So, and this is, I think it's going to be week 1 of the multiple choice series. So we'll talk about this here in a few weeks, but this kind of gets into the free will, predestination type stuff a little bit. Like some people might say, no, like God is like for your job. Some people might say God orchestrated that. Right. God knew that you were going to go back to Peachtree, and he kind of orchestrated it to where that was what you were like supposed to do. Other people would say Peachtree's a good option, Ridgepoint's a good option. You could have chosen either and still been within the will of God, right?
Yes,
you could have been very similar to Joe Skillen, whether you're in Wichita or Atlanta, right?
Yes, yeah.
So I guess if people are like, I think some people get really caught up on, is this God's will for me, right?
Right.
Especially if it's a big decision, like buying a house or a job or marriage or kids. I think I've kind of landed on, there's, like you said, there's kind of a lot of options. God's usually okay with whatever we choose as long as we're kind of within some parameters. Yes. Have you kind of landed in a similar spot?
Yeah, I think so. I could confess that for the first half of life, or first half of my Christian life here, I think I was relatively paralyzed to know what to do because we kind of grew up in the big youth convention era, and it never failed. Like speaker after speaker would say, you know, God's got a specific call in your life, and they always kind of spoke it like in blueprint terms. Yeah. Very rigid, you know, very precise. And then they'd bring up some young person who seemed to be doing that track. And then they would, you know, convey to us, this is what happened to me, and it could happen to you if you could just do X, Y, and Z. And so I think for many of our peers, I mean, you and I went to a Christian college, and so this was a governing conversation, not just what should I do for a job, but who should I marry and where should I live? Like, I just feel like there was a lot of paralysis. So I think on the free will front, I don't know if Christianity is equivalent to determinism. So philosophy has a band of thinkers that they're deterministic, thinking that everything is already predetermined, and we're just kind of uncovering the sand that's been covering it, right? I don't suppose that many Christians embrace that fully. Maybe some early voices did, that because they were sparring with Greco-Roman audiences, so they kind of use those categories. There are like predestination Christians who believe in predestination or election, but that seems to be solely on someone's conversion, whether they're going to be a Christian or not. So that might be the only predetermined feature of a person's life. I think they would also say, but there's like an openness then to other things that are going on out there. And so I think it comes back to your vision of God. Okay, is God someone who is moving chess pieces with little interaction with us, and we're simply kind of following the whims of the big other upstairs? Or is God the one like we see in Genesis 22 when Abraham offers Isaac on the altar, and he stopped right at the right moment, and he says, now I know that you would not withhold your only son. Now he knows? That kind of like messes with some people's idea of omniscience and of sovereignty. Right. And God's kind of waiting, like maybe with holding his breath, seeing what's going to happen next, right? So I had a friend who's a great musician. He always talked about God and jazz music. Okay. So jazz music, if you've ever been to a jazz concert, you know, like everybody's got their instrument and they're very good at it, and they start kind of somebody starts riffing, and then the other musicians begin to sync up and they begin to make a piece together. Yep. I kind of wonder if life before God is not unlike, or not, if it's not like jazz music, where God is playing a tune of the general theme of redemption for all of humanity. Yeah. And he's calling individuals and peoples to himself. And we begin to hear the tune along the way. Yeah. And instead of just kind of continuing to do our own thing, we sync up with the music. Yeah. And begin to play it with the other players that are on the stage too. And so I do think there's a great license in all that. Because the New Testament, once again, I go back to Kevin DeYoung in his book, Just Do Something. I think Ernie Sweat's life group's even reading this book right now. Okay. But he says there's only a few things that are explicitly God's will in the New Testament. And he boiled it down to, you need to be like Jesus. So God's will for any of us is to be like Jesus. Yeah. So if working at one place in one city, or working another leads to that same destination, then we go back to this is perhaps God in his grace allowing us to choose, because ultimately our aim is to be like Jesus and to be as faithful to him as possible. Yeah. We could do that in either one, then it's a gift and it's a choice, and we get to choose our own path there.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was trying to find a quote real quick. So I recently read a book from John Mark Comer. He's one of my guys I really enjoy reading. And he had a quote. He was specifically talking about prayer, but he says this: so from the beginning of human history, God, the creator of everything, has been looking for friends, for free, intelligent, creative partners to collaborate with on running the world.
Yeah.
I like that. Like, I think a lot of times we think like we don't really have much say in the world. Like, again, kind of depending on your view of God, but like God wants us to have a say in how this is going to turn out, right? Yeah. Like He wants to see what's the Abraham Isaac thing? How is it going to turn out? Like He wants us to have an active role in the world and not just He's the one who's making all the decisions. And what a gracious thing of Him for Him to do, right? Yeah. I think that's interesting.
And this seems to be an American blend of spirituality. John Wesley, who was British, but in the Western world, he said, God does nothing but through faithful prayer, which is probably an exaggeration. I think he was using hyperbole there. But he was beckoning the church not to just be these sideline watchers, but get on the field and play, be in the middle of ministry, be in the middle of God's work. And I just do think there are many people groups across the world who have just a different starting place with God. They don't mind a God who is sending this storm and this disease comes to these people. Like they don't mind that type of God, and they still see the Christian God mapped onto that God. But I guess in my own life, and maybe it's because I do want to feel like I have some sort of volition in this equation. I do sense that there is like a friendship. There's a partnership. There's the Greek word is koinonia, which is a business term. Okay. We're in the biz together, and that's not just Christians in the biz together, but I think it's God with the chief investment, to give the investment in the redemption of the redemptive work all around us. Yeah. And so I think that He does still like gather all the folks together on the boardroom tables. Like, well, what would you guys like to do? Like, what would make sense? Like, what would be good news? And then go ahead and join in and all that. And then for us individually, I think God, as we walk with Him, He almost like invites, like, what would you like to partner with me in? Yeah. And I think it's a lovely picture, a delightful picture of how a God would interact with someone who's trying to follow Him. So.
Yeah, that's good. If I could take it back to the Luka story for just a minute, maybe we can wrap up here. We've talked about this before, but just kind of a reminder. Again, he's having all these emotions, going back home for the first time as a Laker, and it's a big moment, right? And again, I think after one of the post games, he said something like, Dallas is important to me. I'll forever call this home. I'm grateful. But now it's time for me to move on. It's kind of like he needed to have this moment where he was able to reflect and be grateful and kind of nostalgic and kind of have all the feels, right? And then he was like, okay, that was really nice. But now my home's in LA now. Like, it's time for me to move on. Yeah. To me, I also think that's pretty healthy. Like, I think it's probably good to take a minute to enjoy the moment, soak up the nostalgia, enjoy the emotional day, and then it's probably wise to also move on, right? Because I think it's also easy to get stuck not being able to move on if we kind of stay there too long, right? Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, so I do think so. All of life is connected to people, and people make life better. They can make life challenging too. I think folks can make life challenging, or it can be challenging when you leave folks behind. And we see this in Acts 20. Paul has this great visit to Ephesus. He's there a long time. Really, and relatively speaking to like his missionary journeys, at least how Acts records it, like he's there for a considerable amount of time. And there's like this vivid image of like they had to like pull themselves apart. Like they wanted Paul to stay, but they also knew the danger ahead for him, and so they didn't want him to go because they were afraid for his life. But like this vivid image of like prying people away from each other. That's probably the best case scenario, where we had such a good experience together. It's really hard to say goodbye. Yeah, we recognize that people move on and stuff, but and there comes a time where like, okay, that was good, and we all need to move on. But still, like, just like I don't think people like the whole adage like no one stands in the same river twice because the river changes and the person changes. Like, we're not different after we part ways. So yes, it's good for Luka to say, hey, like I need to move on now. But Luka is different because of Dallas, and Dallas is different because of Luka, and that's praiseworthy. I think it's good. You can have that, and with this healthy, okay, now it's time for the transition, and not a clean break, because what really is a clean break? I don't know if that's quite possible, but there is a sense where now we need to move ahead together. You move ahead on your behalf, I'll move ahead on my behalf, and we'll be fine. And but love the memories. Thanks for the memories.
Yes. Yeah. Was that a Fall Out Boy reference?
It was, man. Yes. Take all the vowels out.
Oh, I love it. All right, man. Well, it's a pretty uncanny parallel to what's trending in the news and what's happening here on Trending today.
Oh, man.
So that's good.
Oh, well. Thanks for weaving it together.
Yes.
And making me talk about it.
Yes. No, it's good. It's really good. Yeah. And for all you Ridgepoint friends, we're going to have a couple of days coming up where people can have a really proper farewell to you.
Proper.
All the hugs, all the teary notes, all the things. Man. So well deserved.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So we still got like 6 episodes left.
Yes.
We can't be crying now.
I feel like we need to make the most of those.
Yeah.
Like we may need to do some brainstorming on what to do with those. And we'd share some ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe like one is like all helium.
Wow.
like we take hits of helium.
Or bring back the fast food drive-through day.
Yes. I was telling Avery about that. We went to that same Taco Bell. I'm like, we did this trip. She's like, oh, I remember that.
Just show up on Cheryl's front door again.
Yes.
We'll have to replay some of our greatest hits.
We could.
So. All right, man. Well, hey, we'll be back here next week. So thanks for your time today. We'll see you next time. And hope to see you at church on Sunday, too.
Yep. See you next time.
Okay. See ya.